He assumed he would live a normal life with his family until a dragon crashed into his home. When demon animals assaulted the human world, fate gave him a chance, but he was continually reminded that his Gale Hound had no future. Still, he thought he could become a tamer. No matter what challenges he faced, whether foes tried to stop him, friends deserted him, or people mocked him, he was determined to demonstrate his strength with the tamer test right now. This is the journey of the #1 beast master. 1,000 years ago, the dragon clan ruled over all demon beasts. They commanded respect and dominated over the world, shaping the relationships among all the evil animals. But at the top of it all was the demon god, a figure of immense power who ruled over everyone. The demon god commanded respect and loyalty, and their strength influenced the entire realm of demon beasts. He was an ambitious demon that invaded the human planet with an army of magical monsters. He smiled as he invaded other realms, hungry for power and control. Humans were helpless to fight the creatures at the time, so they could only flee. They had no method of defending themselves against the massive assault. The demon god's greed has no boundaries. His ultimate objective was to cloak the entire world in darkness, causing fear and destruction wherever he went. Just when humanity was on the verge of extinction, a new hope called the Awakening emerged. Some people discovered they could establish contracts with demon monsters, obtaining the ability to battle against the darkness. These gifted individuals became recognized as beast tamers after they fought dangerous battles against demon beasts. The name highlighted their special ability to bond with the beasts and fight for survival. Time has passed since then, and we now see a beast tamer engaged in a violent battle against a dragon, her beast unleashing a powerful blast at it. But that wasn't the only threat. Reports indicate that another beast is assaulting Qingfeng City's northern residential community. But then a report comes in, reporting that the demon beast crashed into an apartment building. They urgently are seeking immediate medical aid for those injured. Our main protagonist, Zixingyu, is trembling in fear. He is from Xiangnan High School and is in Class 1, which are third graders. His sense of panic is not unreasonable as a giant dragon's head smashes through his house, leaving him pinned in place and only able to watch in fear. But just then, the dragon noticed him, and fear froze him in place. As he looked at the dragon, he thought it was the end. Then, in the background, he heard a voice chant a spell, giving him a glimmer of hope. The speaker summoned the flame lion to attack, and a purple blast struck the dragon, bringing it crashing down. The voice informed that the dragon had been defeated and mentioned that there was one survivor. Zixingyu, who had covered his eyes in horror, cautiously opened his eyes after hearing the voice claim there had been no victims. It was a beast tamer, and she apologized for causing difficulty. This was Surayan, the headmaster of Qinglan Academy. She approached him with a friendly grin and offered him a card, assuring him that the academy would handle the damage to his residence. She also promised to compensate him for the incident. He smiled as he held the card, reflecting his encounter with a true beast tamer. As she and her company prepared to depart, Surayan turned to him and commented, "Until we meet again, young man." He looked down at the card, remembering how he'd always wanted to be a beast tamer, but he found it difficult to imagine that dream because he couldn't even afford a beast right now. Without one, he couldn't take the National Beast Tamer exam, and without that, he couldn't defend anyone. Suddenly, a little beast appeared in front of him, and he became confused. The creature had a beautiful small face and looked up at him. To his amazement, the beast began to lick his face in happiness, leaving him confused how to respond. He carefully held the beast in one hand and questioned whether it had followed the dragon to this location, wondering aloud if the beast and dragon were friends. But just then he remembered a book he had read about monsters and concluded his new friend was a Gale Hound. It had the weakest bloodline and required no spiritual strength, giving him hope. He thought that, after all, he might be able to handle it. He imagined that with this beast, he could finally become a beast tamer. The test was only 3 days away, and he was worried he wouldn't make it in time. However, he set such ideas aside for the time being. Lifting the beast into the air, he smiled and shouted excitedly, "Good boy." Suddenly, a radiating golden light surrounded the beast, showing the beginning of its spiritual awakening. The scene switches to Qingfeng City's market area as they arrive at the beast tamer store. He looks up while holding the beast and understands that he cannot afford to raise it. He considers whether he should give it to someone who can offer a better life for it. He then glances down at the beast, who is cheerfully looking straight at the store. He tells the beast that their relationship has no future, recalling the empty refrigerator at home. Suddenly, the store owner answered the door, visibly upset to see him. He questioned why the boy was in front of his store so early. Z brought up the beast in front of the store owner, who was greeted with a pleased smile from the beast. Z then asked if the owner wanted the beast, but the owner got upset and shooed them away, claiming the Gale Hound had the lowest bloodline and no evolutionary path. He felt it was foolish to purchase such a beast. The owner's words hurt Z, so he took a step back. The hound was upset by those comments and came to Z for comfort. Z sighed and commented that if the owner didn't want the beast, he should have simply stated so rather than being unpleasant about it. But just then, he noticed a blue glow coming from the hound. It was a system notice that displayed the hound's statistics. It indicated that the hound was tier 1 and possessed a hidden bloodline called the Hell bloodline, which was of epic quality. It showed a hidden ability called Hellfire, causing true damage that bypassed enemy armor. It also revealed a hidden development path, hinting that the Gale Hound may progress to Hell Gale Beast, Hell Nether Beast, and lastly Divine Inferno Yama Beast. He questioned whether he was seeing things correctly. He rubbed his eyes, confused by what he had just seen and wondering if it was still there. The hound looked puzzled at him, and the window still indicated the hidden path. He shouted in surprise about the hidden evolution path, but the store owner sighed, saying the Gale Hound had nothing like that. A person close observed the scene with interest. He tried rubbing his eyes again, but it didn't help. He muttered he must be the only one who can see the window. Just then, Suji, a student and the son of the city's wealthiest man, teased him, asking whether it was truly Z. He teased Z about having to take the tamer test but not being able to do so because he lacked a beast. Suji moved forward, noting the beast in Zhao's arms. He commented that Z had gotten himself a beast. Frustrated, Z turned and walked away, telling Suji to mind his own business. Suji insulted him again, labeling it as a weak Gale Hound. He smiled, adding that Lena was accurate about Zhao's lack of ability to take the tamer test. He teased Z, proclaiming that even if he tried with his weak Gale Hound, he would fail. But Z paused and questioned him about Lena. Suji laughed, saying Z didn't know that his girlfriend, or rather, his ex-girlfriend, Zhang Lena, had been with him for a while, and Z watched her approach as she grabbed Suji's arm and asking where he had been because she couldn't find him. Suji said casually he was just seeing an old friend. She looked over and greeted Z, telling Su that she hadn't been with him in a long time. But she thinks she doesn't mind if Z sees her with someone wealthy since Z is a loser anyway considering he's carrying a weak Gale Hound. Z couldn't take her words and felt his anger grow. He reminded Lena that he was the one who had assisted her while she was in trouble. He went on to say that he didn't care if she chose to spend her life with a rich jerk, adding that she seemed to have forgotten that he was the one who broke up with her. Z left casting a cheeky face at them. Suji yelled in rage that he believed he could talk to his girlfriend like that and threatened to crush him in the national test. Lena responded to Su, advising him not to reduce himself to Zhao's level, especially since he only possessed a weak Gale Hound. She also stated that she should have broken up with him a long time ago. As he walked away, he thought to himself that his hound was far from weak. He felt a burst of determination, confident that they would see how strong his hound could grow in the future. 3 days later, Z entered the city, arriving at Zilan Square. He watched a large crowd forming as a voice announced that the National Advanced Beast Taming exam was about to begin and that all applicants should report to the place. As he entered the square, a voice declared that the exam had officially begun. When Z came forward for the exam, someone recognized him and wondered why he was there without a beast. Another guy commented that Z had no money to buy a beast but still signed up for the test. They also mentioned that he had enrolled in Qinglong Academy. They questioned why he would even attempt to attend Qinglong Academy, one of the top 4 academies, and one person joked that he must be dreaming if he believed he would get in. As he approached the testing orb, Z looked down, realizing how critical this test was to his destiny. Zi Xingyu stood there, his heart beating as he noticed the teacher relaxing with his feet up and a peaceful expression. After gathering his composure, he cleared his throat and said, "Excuse me, sir, but I'm here for the exam." Lifting his head, the teacher said, "You must be Zi Xingyu." Zi Xingyu knew who this was, Chen Cunian, an admissions officer from Qinglong Academy. Zi Xingyu nodded, confirming that he was the one, and signaled to take the exam. Chen stared at him, recalling a report that stated that just one kid in this area was willing to take the academy's admission exam. Su appeared just then, and Zixingyu gave him an irritated look, wondering why he was there. Su mocked him, saying he should know his limits, and pointing out that just 8 people had taken the Qinglong Academy admission exam in the previous 5 years. Su's expression broke into a sarcastic grin as he added that all of them had failed. Su came with a sneer, pushing a paper into Zixingyu's chest. He teased him, implying that if he expected to go in, he was dreaming. If he passed the exam, he would drop to his knees and call him dad with a proud grin. Zixingyu tightened his hands, attempting to remain cool. However, his patience had become thin. With an angry expression, he said that Su should prepare to kneel down and call him dad, since he was not going to fail. Su crushed the paper and yelled at him, but he ignored him completely. Turning to Chen, he said he was prepared to take the exam and asked if they may start. Chen stated with a serious attitude that he needed to make one thing clear: the Qinglong Academy test was difficult. He pointed out that on Zixingyu's application, no backup academies had been provided in the event of failure. Chen also stated that all exam candidates were subject to a condition: if they failed the Qinglong Academy exam, they would never be allowed to attend another Beast Tamer Academy. When the other participants heard about the conditions, they began to insult him. They mocked him as he needed at least 800 spirit power, a rare achievement, and stated he was dreaming. One further stated that if attending the academy was so easy, they would have applied for it too. Ignoring their taunts, Zixingyu turned to Chen and stated he understood and was ready to take the test. Just then, Chen placed his left hand close to the golden orb and announced that the first test was to measure Zixingyu's spirit strength. Zixingyu recognized Chen was asking him to touch the glowing object. He placed his right hand on it, anxious about the outcome. The sphere pulsed gently, detecting the energy in the air, and everyone went silent, replacing their earlier mockery with wonder and anticipation. This was an important moment that would decide not just Xiao's power, but also his future in the world of beast taming. The orb, however, displayed a spirit strength of 316, which was not what he had expected. Su was the first to laugh, criticizing him for believing he was exceptional. His ex-girlfriend piped in, claiming he couldn't even get the bare minimum of spirit power, and everyone around him laughed. Chen was disappointed, believing he had a bright student, and waved for the next person to come up. But the sphere began to shine brighter as Zixingyu's palm was still on it. Chen couldn't believe his eyes and told him to wait since the orb wasn't done evaluating his power. Su was taken aback by the orb's power, which passed 600, and it kept increasing. When the power level reached 711, he couldn't believe it. Just then, the orb reached 802, proving that Zixingyu had exceeded the minimal threshold, but the numbers continued to rise. Su, his ex-girlfriend, and another spectator were stunned as it reached 956. That individual yelled, arguing that it was impossible and questioning whether the orb was broken. Suddenly, the light around the sphere faded, revealing a spirit power of 1028. Zixingyu pulled his hand away, leaving Chen surprised as he read the power, 1028. Chen thought about what type of person he was to have such strong spirit power, while the rest were stunned. Su, on the other hand, was angry that someone he made fun of could achieve such an amazing result. Chen realized that spirit power determined how many beasts a beastmaster could have. The higher the spirit power, the more powerful beasts one could tame, making Zixingyu's result even more impressive. Because, since each beast requires around 100 spirit power to make a contract, having 1028 meant that Zixingyu might potentially become a 10-star beast master. This further added to Chen's amazement at the unexpected turn of events. Then he was thinking about 10-star beast masters, remembering that only a few had come out from the Dragon Kingdom in recent decades. He understood he could have discovered the kingdom's next genius. Chen announced Zixingyu's spirit power results to everyone, and Zixingyu grinned. Someone in the crowd mentioned that Yining Chuang, last year's girl genius, with a spirit power of 1030. Another person commented on how surprising it was that Zixingyu was only 2 points behind her. Meanwhile, Su and his ex-girlfriend were not happy with the results. Su continued to taunt him, pointing out that the Qinglong Academy test was divided into 2 parts. His ex-girlfriend added, with an angry expression, that he would never pass the bloodline exam since it assessed beast-quality bloodlines. But Chen had had enough and was ready to begin the next test when a staff member called out to him, appearing concerned. He whispered that there was an error with the orb's spirit power reader, and that Zixingyu's true score was 1032. This surprised Chen because it was 2 points higher than last year's genius. With a serious expression, he ordered the staff member not to say anything yet, and the worker nodded in agreement. Chen turned around and declared that the second phase of the exam, the Beast Bloodline Quality Test, would begin. Zixingyu stood in the center, while those present waited in silence to see if he would pass this test as well. Chen ordered Zixingyu to summon his beast. Zixingyu smiled and lifted his right hand, causing a sign on the back of it to light up. The symbol produced red energy, lighting the air. He placed his right hand in front of him, a determined look on his face, commanding his Black Fang beast to emerge. The red and black energy began to take shape, forming legs with claws as Black Fang started to materialize before him. Just then, a fire encircled the shadow of his beast as his summoning brought it into the real world. The crowd watched closely, hoping to discover if his beast belonged to a renowned bloodline, as he released a powerful rush of spirit power in the first test. As the fire faded, the assembled audience glimpsed glimpses of a beast's ear, and when the flames reduced even more, they saw the face of a dog. When the fire was out, they were confronted with the sight of a frail dog beast sleeping on the ground. They laughed as they taunted him for having such a poor lineage, the lowest possible grade. Just then, the hound began to stir due to the disturbance. It stood up and looked around curiously, while the examiner frowned at the weak dog beast. He thought that Zixingyu's enormous spirit strength was worthless if he could only call monsters of inferior bloodline. He closed his eyes, preparing to express his disappointment, but suddenly the hound made a noise. As the dog began to move, people's attention was drawn to its movements. One witness lifted an eyebrow, clearly skeptical that the monster was only a weak hound. The weak-looking hound's eyes grew crimson as the cross on its face started to glow. It expanded in size, becoming more fierce as a dark crimson glow surrounded it. One individual yelled in amazement, arguing that hounds could not develop, especially since they had no evolutionary path to begin with. The examiner took a step closer, overshadowed by the beast, and started a bloodline check device. It proved that the monster was a Hellwind beast with an epic Hell bloodline, capable of Hellfire and Hellbend, as well as fire and air abilities. However, the talent Hell Howl was now restricted. The equipment failed to identify an evolution route, and as he studied the facts, he began to question himself, wondering if the beast was at the second stage of its evolution. He smiled back at Zixingyu, understanding that his suspicions regarding the young man's remarkable potential had been correct. Zixingyu acknowledged the smile, sensing the examiner's satisfaction for his tamed beast. The examiner revealed the findings, stating that Zixingyu had passed both examinations and was now a student at the Kingling Academy. Suji and Zhonglina, humiliated by the uproar they had made, attempted to flee while everyone was staring at the beast. But Zixingyu called out to them, asking where they thought they were going. Suji looked back to find Zixingyu standing near his huge tamed beast. With a sarcastic tone, Zixingyu inquired whether Suji had forgotten the prior agreement. But Suji was unable to keep his end of the bargain and became furious. He pointed at Zixingyu, telling him that he shouldn't be so arrogant, especially as the son of the richest man in town. He claimed that he would not fulfill their agreement and confronted Zixingyu, asking what he intended to do about it. Meanwhile, Zhonglina watched, embarrassed and uncertain how to respond. As he directed his beast to take Suji, Zixingyu's expression changed from one of satisfaction to rage. Su turned just in time to see the beast racing toward him, unable to escape its grip. As the beast held him down with a single claw, Zixingyu remembered his earlier words and grinned. He announced that Su would fulfill his end of the bargain by calling him Dad. Su understood he had no way out of the scenario he had created, as the beast's weight pressed down on him. Gritting his teeth, he finally gave in and addressed Zixingyu as Dad. Suddenly, the weight disappeared as Zixingyu walked away, taunting Suji by claiming he did not have a waist of a kid like him. Just then, Zhonglina stood in front of him, smiling as she admitted to missing him and growing feelings for him over the previous 2.5 years. She asked if she might return as his girlfriend, but Su recognized her true character and moved past her, declaring that he did not wish to return to the past. Zhang Lina watched him leave with regret. In a desperate attempt to reclaim his attention, she collapsed and cried out, acknowledging her mistake in leaving him and begged for another opportunity. However, he ignored her and continued to walk away. A few minutes later, as he strolled down a downtown street, he decided to contact his sister and tell her the good news. He located her phone number and phoned. When she responded, he began with a welcome, but was soon stopped by her shrieking in the background. He could hear beasts attacking, and as he listened closer, the roar of monsters resonated down the line. His expression turned serious as he realized his sister was in danger, with monsters roaming across that part of the city. Alarmed, he swiftly devised a strategy for reaching her. The scene moved to the outskirts of the city, where a farmer's market was in full swing, but terror grabbed the crowds. Fear was clear on their faces as they rushed to avoid the attacking creatures. Among the chaos, a small girl could be seen crying as she was being hugged firmly by someone attempting to calm her. The chaos around her further added to her terror, highlighting the situation's urgency as everyone struggled for survival. A young lady hugged the small child closely, trying to keep her calm. She kept a firm grasp, her look determined, as she sheltered the youngster from the chaos around them. The sounds of the creatures raged in the background, but the young lady concentrated on keeping the girl secure, her eyes scanning for any sign of danger and calmly holding her hand. The girl's cries were heard, but the lady's presence brought some comfort in the middle of the chaos. But she was so concentrated on the tiny child that she didn't notice the big shadow behind her. The sounds of the girls crying drew a monster to their location. As the thing approached, its ominous presence filled the air, prompting the young lady's senses to kick in. She turned, her eyes wide with panic, understanding they were in danger. The big creature crept over the tiny wall they were sheltering behind, sharp tail ready to attack. The young lady could only look up in dread as she automatically pulled the small girl's head aside to protect her from the creature's gaze. However, the small girl caught a glimpse of the monster and screamed out, covering her eyes firmly. As the creature rose above them, its eyes fixated on the duo, the young lady realized the seriousness of the situation. This may be their death. Fear grabbed her heart, but she stayed steadfast, determined to protect the kid regardless. He arrived in a state of terror, his mind absorbed by his sister. He pushed through the crowd, racing toward the sounds of conflict. He stopped and he surveyed the chaos of the battle, his mind racing with worrying for his sister. As he could only see people fleeing in panic, their faces filled with fear, he spotted his sister just as the monster smashed the earth nearby. She dodged to the side, holding a small kid in her arms. He screamed in fear, screaming out to her while the beast roared, desperately attempting to reach them both. He ran, pushing his body to its limits, agony on his face. A blue glow emerged before him, and the system informed him that his Hellstorm beast was now able to perform the abilities Hell Howl and Hell Bind. It questioned if he wanted Black Fang to learn them. Realizing he needed every advantage, he pressed yes on the notice, his eyes burning red with fury. He screamed at Black Fang to release the new abilities. But, much to his surprise, nothing happened. Black Fang looked up at him, its expression filled with confusion. Panic overtook him as he wondered why it hadn't worked. He didn't have much time left. The creature drew back its tail, green drips dropping and crackling as they melted the earth, revealing the poison inside. Locking onto its target once more, the beast pulled its tail back even more, prepared to attack. When he watched the attack approach his sister, he screamed in terror. Under pressure, he anxiously looked for a method to assist and remembered the beast tamer he had seen earlier. The tamer began chanting a spell before the tamed lion charged. He knew he needed to use the appropriate words to order Black Fang to attack. Recalling the tamer's spell, he resolved to apply it on his own hound. As he began to chant, Black Fang changed, enveloped by a whirling black and crimson aura, ready for war. The hound jumped ahead as he continued to chant and stretched his hand forward. As he finished the spell, Black Fang opened his mouth and created a tremendous energy beam. The energy beam struck its target, severing the monster and splitting it into bits. The strike barely missed his sister and the small child, who were cowering in fear. As the chaos developed, his sister attempted to comfort the small girl while maintaining her cool. As the beaten beast lay crumpled on the ground and Black Fang transformed again, he wondered if this power actually belonged to him. He struggled to accept the truth of what had just occurred, and the incredible skills of a beast tamer. But then he realized why he was here. His sister was near the monster. Panic flooded through him as he dashed towards her, shouting out, "Are you alright?" When she heard his voice, she turned to see him rush toward her, relief spreading over her face. She gently set the young girl down and stepped up, laying her hands on him. He displayed relief at her safety, with a tinge of remorse in his eyes. She glanced at him with anxiety on her face, and he smiled back, grabbing her hand and telling her about his win and new status as a Beastmaster. Black Fang sprang in front of him, surprising him, as she stood there, shocked at the sudden interruption. He fell to the ground, smiling as Black Fang licked his fingers. With a proud grin, he introduced his beast to his sister. Black Fang stood up, wagging its tail and beaming with happiness as it approached her. He explained that it was a hellstorm beast he had named Black Fang, filled with excitement as he shared their bond. As the panicked crowd began to settle, one person questioned if the monster had really been defeated. They all turned their attention to him, and he smiled, confidently explaining that the threat was indeed gone. His sister chimed in, confirming his words, while the little girl scanned the area for someone. Suddenly, a voice called out, and the little girl's face lit up as she spotted her mother, who looked worn out from searching for her. The mother rushed over, thanking him for his help and asking if he was truly a Beastmaster. He nodded, affirming that he was a Beastmaster, and walked back to the defeated monster with his sister. Meanwhile, the little girl cried tears of joy as she reunited with her mother. As they approached the fallen creature, he and his sister scanned the area, searching for any loot or remnants that might have been left behind by the monster. He noticed a hole in the monster and peered inside, spotting a shimmering gem. The system's notification flashed before him, stating it was a monster core, an initial stage level item obtained from the defeated creature. Its attribute was poison, and it had the effect of increasing poison attribute attacks by 5. He also received a notification that he gained 10 experience points. He picked up the core, feeling a bit disappointed with the loot, even as it glowed softly in his hand. He called to Black Fang and tossed the gem, which the hound happily jumped up to catch. He figured that even a low-level gem could still help Black Fang. Turning to the crowd, he announced that they could relax now that the monster was defeated. Meanwhile, Black Fang looked ahead with a curious expression. The crowd rushed toward him, surrounding him as he felt a bit out of place. One person thanked him for saving them, while another hailed him as the hero of the town. Just then, the little girl he had rescued spoke up. He looked down at her as she declared her dream of becoming a beast tamer like him. Seeing her determination, he patted her on the head and smiled, telling her he believed she would become a Beastmaster one day. Her eyes lit up with joy as she looked up at him, filled with hope and excitement. As night fell, moonlight filled the room, softly lighting him as he slept, fatigued from the day's activities. Suddenly, his sister entered, her face black and her fists clenched. She gazed down at her brother, who lay happily. Her expression became increasingly agitated as she looked down at him, confused and angry. She stood there, her emotions visibly conflicted as she thought about something troubling. But then her gaze shifted to something that made her smile, a blue glow lighting up her eyes. The change in her expression eased the tension as she focused on the source of her happiness. The glow was coming from the middle of his back, resembling a monster of some kind. She hurried to the kitchen area and made a phone call, stating that the Dragon Rune curse was still in place and that the essence of the Dragon King remained sealed. As she spoke, her mind drifted to thoughts of the Dragon King, recalling him as a powerful beast, but her expression turned serious as she questioned the person on the phone about how Zixinyu was able to form a contract with the beast. She struggled to comprehend the situation, noting that the Dragon Curse was known to prevent any Beastmaster from making such a contract. The person on the phone replied that they didn't fully understand the power of the Dragon Curses, suggesting that perhaps he could only create contracts with beasts under certain conditions. Hearing this, her frustration boiled over, and she became visibly angry at the uncertainty of the situation. Frustrated, she received more orders, her displeasure clear. She declared that she would keep a closer watch on him from now on, considering the new situation that had developed. The seriousness of it all only added to her determination. The next day, they arrive at the train station and see a group of people waiting for him. The two people are visibly happy as they greet him. He mentions that he brought some eggs he's always liked, and the lady adds that they all pooled their money together for him, handing him 2 red envelopes. They then see the train arrive and head toward it. He turns back, smiling and waving as he thanks the group for coming out to see them off. He promises to return during his 2-week break to visit them all. His sister smiles at the group in gratitude. They both climb aboard the train and find a good seat. He encourages his sister to take the seat next to the window. The train departs, and a few hours later, an announcement comes over the speaker. It mentions reports of beasts in the area and along the railway ahead, warning that the train might shake a bit. Both of them look confused. A few minutes later, another announcement is made, stating that they have passed through the dangerous area and should be fine from here on out. He smiles at his sister and says he's glad they made it through and are almost at Longyan City. His sister returns the smile, reminding him that he'll soon start school and encouraging him to study hard while he's there. But their happiness is cut short as the train starts to shake violently. He screams out, questioning what's going on. Just then, another announcement is made, stating that a group of beasts has been spotted ahead. The voice warns that they are 3-eyed giant apes and advises everyone to protect themselves and their belongings. He grows serious, recognizing that the situation has turned dangerous, and readies himself for battle. But the other passengers react differently. One cries out in fear, questioning how they could have been told they were safe, while another screams in terror, recalling the dangers those beasts pose. But suddenly, something large lands on the train, cracking the roof. One person panics, asking what they're going to do, while another wonders if anyone is going to take care of the beast. But it was too late. One of the beasts ripped through the roof, roaring in excitement at the sight of food. A person screams for everyone to run, warning that the beasts are coming. He calls out to his sister, knowing her safety is his top priority. He tells her to hide and not come out, but she looks worried and questions what he plans to do. She falls to the ground from the shaking of the train, screaming for him not to go as he starts to leave her. Just then, an ape appears, having heard her cries. It rips through the roof and lands in front of him with a roar, catching him off guard. But he is saved by another beast, which smacks the ape back with its tail, leaving him in shock. Then he hears a voice calling out to him, mocking him for just standing there and not doing anything. A young lady stands between him and the ape. Her name is Ch13, the daughter of the Sky Guild's president. She puts her arm out, telling him to fall back if he doesn't want to get hurt. She begins channeling her skill, spinning her weapon with determination. Calling out the skill Thunder Flash, her beast understands her command and dashes forward with the speed of thunder. A system window pops up, displaying the stats of the beast. A 3-tailed Thunder Fox at extraordinary Tier 3 level, with a bloodline of Thunder Fox and epic quality. Its attributes are Thunder and Air, with an evolution path leading from the 3-tailed Thunder Fox to the 4-tailed Thunder Fox, then the 5-tailed Thunder Fox, and finally the 9-tailed Thunder Fox. It also has a hidden evolution path to the Shadow Red Lightning Fox and, ultimately, the Scarlet Lightning Fox. Its skills include 3-tailed Thunderstorm, which sweeps at the enemy, dealing electric damage and stunning them for 1 second, and the active skill being used is called Thunder Flash, which allows it to dash to evade attacks and strike the enemy with lightning damage. He watches her and the Thunder Fox attack and realizes the significance of its lightning abilities, concluding that she must be a Beastmaster named Ch13, as he only knows one person with this type of lightning. Another passenger calls out in happiness, declaring that they are safe now that a Beastmaster is on board. He can only watch in excitement as he sees a Beastmaster in action, questioning to himself if they are truly safe from the apes. But that is not the case. Another ape jumps down through the hole made by the first one. Seeing this, he screams to the others to get to the next carriage of the train, warning that it isn't safe here. He then realizes how foolish he was to forget that apes usually roam in groups and that there was no way there was just one. He understands they now have 3 apes to deal with. He acts quickly, summoning Black Fang to come out and commanding his hound to assist the Beastmaster. A red and black aura gathers as Black Fang materializes. Ch13 holds her weapon steady as her beast attacks one of the apes. Frustrated, she complains about the number of apes they have to deal with, but she was so focused on that one ape that she didn't notice the other 2 were already attacking her. When she looked back in a panic, she saw the apes roaring menacingly. Suddenly, he called out a skill, recalling how to command his beast. He instructed Black Fang to use Inferno Bind, holding his hand out in front of him. Black Fang understood and gathered red and black energy in its mouth before releasing the skill. As he looked on, he saw that Inferno Bind had ensnared all the apes, and he mocked them, asking where they thought they were off to. As the chains that weren't wrapped around the apes began to fade away, the 3 apes lay on the ground, bound and subdued. He pondered the skill he had just activated, placing his hand on his chin and wondering where else he might be able to use it. Just then, Qin Yanren called out, asking if he was also a Beastmaster. He replied that he was also a Beastmaster as she picked up her fox and walked over to him. Smiling, she thanked him for helping her earlier, but he remarked that any Beastmaster would have done the same in that situation. But just then, another system window appeared, leaving him confused. It showed the fox's status as depressed and lethargic due to post-battle trauma. With a treatment that involved crushing anemone flowers, soaking them in hot water, adding a thunder attribute catalyst, and mixing in the fully dissolved core of a water-type magical beast. With this information, he questioned her if her fox had become tired after battle and sometimes showed signs of anger. She asked him how he knew about her fox. He rubbed his chin thoughtfully and explained that her fox was suffering from post-battle trauma, something he had read about in the Beastmaster Guild's materials on understanding beast body language. He noted that lightning foxes are one of the main beasts that experience this issue, all while thinking to himself that he couldn't reveal the system showing her beast status. She was grateful and playfully hit him on the back, commenting that she now understood why her lightning fox hadn't been smiling lately. The smack was so strong that he leaned forward, telling her to take it easy on him. Suddenly, she grabbed him by the shoulder, looked him in the eye, and declared that he was now her little brother, leaving him confused by the whole situation. But he wasn't the only one confused. His sister stood up after witnessing the whole exchange, her fist clenched in anger. She appeared furious, her face twisted in anger as she glared at both of them. It was clear she was upset about something, and the tension in the air thickened. She smiled as she stepped between them, trying to hide her anger toward the other girl. She apologized, saying it was nice of her to say that, but he wasn't just anyone's little brother. Meanwhile, he looked confused about what she was doing. She approached him and grabbed his arm, smiling as she claimed that he was her younger brother and didn't need anybody else except her. Meanwhile, he questioned why he was in this circumstance, but Qin Yanren knew what the girl meant, and she didn't want to share him. Annoyed that he already had a female alongside him, she resolved to check if she could be his sister as well. She grabbed him and clutched his arm, smiling, as she questioned if she was the only sister he really needed. He was nervous and didn't like where this was going. She grabbed him back, trying her best not to show her frustration. But Qin Yanren screamed at her, declaring that he was also her little brother from now on. He stayed silent, knowing this was going to be a pain for him. The two began to argue, one wearing a furious expression as she insisted he was her little brother. The other, smiling but clearly seething inside, claimed she needed him and that she was his little sister. He found himself in the middle, getting pulled from each side, and thought they needed to stop before they pulled him apart. After a while, he reached the central plaza of Azure Dragon Academy. New students filled the area, chatting and looking around with excitement. As they settled down, a voice called out from the front, capturing their attention. Everyone turned to listen, curious about what awaited them at the academy. The Dean of Azure Dragon Academy, Yin Kang, smiled warmly as he welcomed the new students. As he spoke, the Vice Principal, Wang Duxiang, stood beside him, ready to support him if needed. The Dean continued to speak, looking over the group of new students. He spotted the main protagonist and noted that this was the one with impressive spirit power who had caught the attention of several teachers during the entrance test. He then asked everyone to be patient as they waited for the school principal to arrive. Standing there, he began to recall that after saying goodbye to Qin, his sister hadn't been happy with him for some reason. She kept ignoring him until he finally enrolled, and he couldn't help but think about how he had managed to get into the academy he wanted. But suddenly, a loud roar filled the area, causing everyone to stop and look up. A mighty lion roared from above, its powerful voice echoing through the air and capturing the attention of all the new students. One student smiled with joy at the sight of the purple-flamed lion, thrilled to see such an incredible creature. Another student called out, excitedly saying it was Director Su's lion. As the purple lion flew above the crowd, its flames shimmering in the sunlight, all the new students were amazed by its power and grace. They watched in awe, captivated by the director's beast as it soared through the air, leaving them in wonder. Finally, the director arrived at the front, and the lion let out a mighty roar that sent shockwaves through the area. As it began to land on the stage, the ground trembled slightly beneath its powerful presence, drawing the attention of all the new students. She then dismounted from her lion and stood confidently on the stage. The dean turned to her, commenting that it would be great if the director could say a few words to the new students of the academy. She looked calm and collected, ready for the new students, but he was in shock, unable to believe that she was the woman who had fought the shadow demon dragon before. He hadn't expected her to be the director of the academy. Reflecting on the battle he had witnessed, he realized just how powerful she truly was. She grabbed the mic and congratulated the new students, her voice warm and encouraging. However, she quickly reminded them of one important thing they needed to be aware of. Her aura shifted to a serious tone, as she stated that it didn't matter if you came from a powerful family or from humble beginnings. As she lifted her head, she looked at the new students with a serious expression and stated that at Azure Dragon Academy, they would all follow her rules. She emphasized that they must obey, especially rule number 8, which she had put in place for everyone's benefit. All the students focused on her, wondering what was so special about rule number 8. One student turned to another and asked if they had heard anything about it, feeling a mix of curiosity and nervousness. Just then, the director heard the students questioning what rule number 8 was. She waved her left arm and explained that rule number 8 stated that if there were conflicts between students, no matter who was right or wrong, they must resolve it through a duel in the ring. She emphasized that the loser would have to apologize to the winner. He began to think, realizing there was more to rule number 8 than what she was explaining. Considering his own situation, he understood that while the rules seemed strict, it was actually a way to prevent powerful families from abusing their influence and bullying others. For students like himself from humble beginnings, it offered a chance to seek justice through their own strength. 2 hours passed, and the students had been assigned to their classrooms when suddenly, a voice screamed out about something. The commotion drew everyone's attention, and curiosity filled the air as they wondered what was happening. It was a student who looked visibly upset, pointing his finger at him. He questioned if he was Zixingyu, stating that they were in the same class. The student continued, declaring that he was the one whose spirit power almost rivaled that of the famous senior Yi Ningxuan. However, Zixingyu completely ignored him, his attention shifting to the entrance examiner, who was now his new teacher. Chen looked at the student and gritted his teeth, telling everyone to sit down because class was about to start. He closed his eyes for a moment, and the other students quickly grabbed their seats, eager to avoid getting into trouble. As Chen began the class, he stood up to write on the board. Just then, the student who had been screaming at him earlier leaned over and whispered that he was now his older brother and that he would follow him from now on. Chen looked over at him, confused by what he had just said, but Chen could hear them talking and reminded them that if they wanted to chat, they could leave his class and not come back. His tone was firm, making it clear that he wouldn't tolerate any distractions. He then turned around and introduced himself as homeroom teacher Chen Qinian. He stated that they would learn something valuable during their time at Azure Dragon Academy. He instructed the students to open their Beast Companion Guild books and to look at the first chapter, where they would begin with the theory of Beast Companions. He stated that the strength of a Beast Companion is mainly determined by 2 factors, and explained that the first is the companion's evolutionary stage. Currently known evolutionary stages, from lowest to highest, include the initial form, which appears as a small beast. Next is the mature form, where the beast is slightly larger. Then comes the complete form, followed by the transcendent form. Finally, there is the Beast King form, representing the highest level of evolution and power. He then moved on to the second factor, stating that it is the beast's bloodline quality. He explained that they have documented various bloodlines, ranging from poor to high quality. He emphasized that higher quality bloodlines naturally possess the ability to suppress those from lower bloodline beasts, giving them an inherent advantage in strength and abilities. He explained further that the attributes of beast companions can create an attribute suppression effect. He stated that, for example, the common 5-element attributes metal, wood, water, fire, and earth follow a cycle of mutual suppression: wood over earth, earth over water, water over fire, fire over metal, and metal over wood. He also noted that beyond these 5 basic attributes, there are other variants, such as sand and lightning, mentioning that he wouldn't list them all one by one. As the lesson continued, time passed, and it was now afternoon. He was happily sleeping at his desk, using his arms as a pillow, completely unaware that he was snoring. The quiet classroom was filled with the soft sound of his snores, contrasting with the ongoing lesson. Chen was furious at how a student dared to sleep during his class while he was teaching. In a fit of annoyance, he threw a piece of chalk at the student's head, waking him up. Chen then shouted for him to stand up immediately, his frustration evident. He stood up, trying his best to shake off the sleepiness, but he was still half asleep. Chen, visibly angry, screamed at him, questioning if he had the nerve to sleep in his class, implying that if he did, he must know all the answers. He pressed him for the weakness of a sky demon lizard, his face contorted with frustration. He added that if the student got the answer wrong, he should pack his things and never return to his class. He thought about the sky demon lizard and remembered everything he had read about it. A smile appeared on his face as he looked down at his hand and recalled that the weak point was the venom sac under its abdomen. Chen asked him another question about where the ice condor crocodiles typically lived. He noted that they resided in the Frostfall Lake region of the Southern Dragon Kingdom and possibly in the cold pools beneath the Kunlun Glacier Falls. He began to think that he might have already gone through all the course material but needed to check his knowledge with a harder question. Looking at Zixinyu with a serious expression, he asked what he would do if he encountered a sky-rending tiger in the wild. Without wasting any time, he confidently stated that he would bite down on his ID as hard as he could and find a shady area to lie down. His classmates looked confused by his answer and questioned why he would do that. Chen, also puzzled, asked him to explain his reasoning behind such a decision. He thought about the sky-rending tiger and explained that it was a mutated beast king, formidable enough that only a level 6 beastmaster or higher stood a chance against it. He noted that as a beginner beastmaster, encountering a sky-rending tiger in the wild would mean he had little hope of victory. Defeat was almost certain at that point. His classmates now focused intently on him, listening as he continued. He explained that if he were to be defeated by the beast, he would place his ID in his mouth to make it easier for anyone who found him to identify him. He added that he would hide in a shady area to slow down the decay of his body, making it easier for his family to identify him for the officials. Chen suddenly looked down, gritting his teeth as he questioned how a student could know such information already. He thought he might be a genius. Then, he slammed his hand on the table and declared that he was giving him full marks for all the questions he had just asked, awarding him a perfect score of 100%. Chen asked him how he knew that information since it was from later chapters. He smiled while holding up a few books and replied that he already finished studying the course material. His classmates couldn't believe what he was saying. One asked how they were supposed to keep up with a study monster like him, while another wondered if he was some kind of prodigy. Chen instructed the class to self-study for a while, allowing them to focus on their own work. He then motioned for him to come outside. They arrived outside, and he apologized to Chen for falling asleep in class, promising it wouldn't happen again. However, Chen indicated that he had called him out not to discuss that, but for another reason entirely. Chen lifted his hand to his chin and remarked that he had mastered the entire semester's theory content in just a few hours during class today. Rubbing the back of his head, he acknowledged that it was all thanks to Chen's teachings that he had learned it so quickly. But Chen got irritated and pointed out that he should know when to use flattery and when not to. He continued, stating that since he had completed the theory section, it was time for him to move on to more advanced material. While he thought his teaching style was effective, he didn't believe it was good enough for one student to learn everything in just a few hours. He then pulled something from his pocket and handed it to him, explaining that it was a library pass for the Azure Dragon Academy. He couldn't believe his luck as he held it in his hands, his mind racing with all the fascinating things he could learn there. Chen added that it was a free pass to the library, allowing him to come and go as he pleased and borrow books at no cost. Chen placed his hand on his shoulder, looking pleased as he said it was time for him to move on. He understood that Chen was giving him approval to advance beyond the class and explore new things. A few minutes later, he found himself in the Azure Dragon Academy library, having already been self-studying for a few hours. Surrounded by countless books, he focused intently on all the fascinating information within them, eager to absorb as much as he could. Just then, a group of people entered, and one of them called out, claiming that the Azure Dragon Academy library belonged to him today. This person was Wang Yan, the son of the vice principal. His presence commanded attention, and the atmosphere in the library shifted as everyone turned to see what he would do next. Wang Yan ordered everyone to leave immediately, and several people hurried for the exit to avoid any trouble with the vice's son. Meanwhile, Xinyu ignored them, staying focused on his studies and determined to keep learning despite the disruption. Wang Yan then noticed a few girls in the distance. He looked at them and said that they could stay to keep him company and help him with his studies. The girls, however, looked scared at the sight of the vice's son and didn't know how to respond. The girls looked completely scared and terrified, pleading with Wang Yan to please let them go, their eyes welling up with tears as they seemed on the verge of crying. But then Xinyu closed his book, unable to ignore what he was hearing and how the vice's son was behaving toward the girls. He felt compelled to stand up against Wang Yan's arrogance. He threw the book he was reading at Wang Yan's head, hitting him and catching his attention. He then told Wang Yan to shut up already. Wang Yan was confused about who would dare throw something at him. Just then, one of the guys he was with pointed to Xinyu, saying he was the one who had disrespected him. Meanwhile, Xinyu casually walked toward them. Xinyu stood between the girls and Wang Yan, stating that Wang Yan had no shame for bullying girls. Wang Yan questioned who he thought he was and accused him of trying to be a hero just to impress the girls. But then one of the girls grabbed his jacket, looking really worried. When he turned back to her, she said that the person he was arguing with was the son of the vice principal of the academy and that they couldn't afford to mess with him. He turned back to Wang Yan with a smile and said that he was the son of the vice principal of the school. He mocked Wang Yan, suggesting that he understood why he was being so arrogant. Wang Yan just looked at him with an arrogant expression, stating that he was glad he understood who he was. Wang Yan became further arrogant, demanding that Xinyu bow down and apologize, pointing to his feet. However, Xinyu didn't care who he was. He firmly answered that Wang was dreaming as he kicked him in the center of his legs. Wang's face became pale as he was plainly upset by the kick on his family's jewels. He fell to the ground in pain, rolling from side to side. One of his friends, looking worried, asked if he was alright, while the other two simply watched, unsure of what to do. Wang Yan, still arrogant despite his predicament, struggled to lift his hand in the air and stated that Xinyu didn't know who he was messing with. His friends could only watch in fear. Still holding the area that was hurt, Wang clenched his fist and glared at Xinyu, warning that if he dared to mess with him, he could be sure he wouldn't leave the library alive. Continuing his tough act, he threatened Xinyu once more, warning him that he would show him who truly held power at Kingling Academy. However, Xinyu noticed several shadows moving quickly toward them. As they got closer, a voice broke out, commenting on the arrogance of the guy speaking. As they approached with authority, she stated that she hadn't realized her Kingling Academy was under his command. She thought on how bold he was to use his father's influence to make this situation, as Chen followed behind her. But the vice principal's son was focused on just one thing: how the principal had discovered what was happening so quickly. She continued, her expression turning serious as she stated that she was aware of what the vice principal's son, Wang Yan, had been doing there. She explained that since there was a conflict between two students, they would both be required to act in accordance with Article 8 of the Academy rules. This rule dictated that if there was a dispute between students, they would resolve it in the duel area, with the loser required to apologize to the winner. The scene shifts to the central square where the duel is about to take place. One student urged the other to hurry up, eager to watch as Xinyu and Wang Yan settled their differences in the duel area. The other student replied that Wang Yan had a legendary six-clawed sky-splitting leopard, making it clear that whoever his opponent was, it would be a tough battle. As another person overheard their conversation, they questioned whether Xinyu could really win. As he stood confidently in the ring with a smile, the other student became frustrated and declared that Xinyu would win. While Chen watched from the stands, he felt uncertain about who would win but hoped that Xinyu would come out on top. He wished for Xinyu not to let him down, Just then, Gimlong called for them to come forward and enter the duel area to shake hands. He was the teacher overseeing the duel as both students approached. Wang Yan shook Zixingyu's hand, thinking to himself that he would teach him a lesson today about knowing his place at the school. Seeing Wang Yan's face, Zixingyu smiled and mocked him, commenting that he should get his apology ready. In response, Wang Yan threatened that after today, he would ensure that Zixingyu's beast would no longer exist. Just then, Gimlong instructed them to return to their sides and announced that the official duel match would begin now. Wang Yan wasted no time and began to summon his ice leopard. A bright blue circle formed beneath him as his expression darkened with a smile, relishing the thought of crushing his opponent. Suddenly, a blue leopard emerged, its eyes glowing red as it locked onto Zixingyu, poised and ready for battle. Suddenly, the system activated again and displayed the stats of the leopard. It revealed that the beast was at the initial stage 1, boasting a legendary bloodline with ice and wind attributes. The leopard had a talent for profound ice freeze, which reduced the target's movement speed and attack speed by 30% with any successful hit. Additionally, it possessed the talent Shattering Cold, enabling it to shoot ice spheres that formed ice blades upon impact, causing significant damage. The leopard's loyalty was noted to be 72. Seeing the information, all Zixingyu could think about was that the beast had two types of attributes, realizing it could utilize both during the battle. He wondered how to plan his attacks effectively but knew that for now, he needed to summon his own beast. He then lifted his hand and called for his beast to take the stage, summoning Black Fang. Suddenly, a red circle appeared, and a red and black aura enveloped Black Fang as it howled upon arriving on the stage. As Black Fang's aura began to spread, a student from earlier remarked that Zixingyu's beast looked intimidating, while another student commented that, in terms of looks, the leopard didn't compare to the impressive appearance of Zixingyu's beast. Meanwhile, in the VIP seating area, an orb displayed the battle, revealing the principal watching intently. She noted that she had never seen Zixingyu's beast before and, as she observed the dark creature, a sense of familiarity washed over her. She pondered why it looked so familiar to her. Suddenly, she remembered that Zixingyu's beast resembled an evolved version of the Gale Hound. She watched the match closely, reflecting on how the hound had always been regarded as a useless beast with no evolution path. If she was correct, she questioned how Zixingyu had managed to create a path for the hound. Wang Yan, angered by all the attention Black Fang was receiving, shouted that he would make sure to watch his beast disappear today. He commanded his ice leopard to activate Ice Crack Reading Claw, and the beast swung its front legs forward, unleashing two ice energy blades that shot straight toward Black Fang. But Zixingyu was ready, his face set with determination, as he commanded Black Fang to activate Serpentine Movement. Black Fang surged forward at incredible speed, dodging the incoming ice attacks. As the first wave of ice projectiles approached, Black Fang veered to the side, narrowly avoiding them. However, more ice attacks followed, and he swiftly dodged again, this time moving forward before evading to the side once more. But suddenly, the ice leopard appeared in Black Fang's blind spot. Black Fang noticed the ice leopard at the last moment, but it was too late. The ice leopard lunged, its ice claws connecting with Black Fang, and he let out a scream of pain as the attack landed. The ice leopard seemed pleased with its strike. As the dust settled, Black Fang appeared injured, ice now clinging to its body, reducing its movement speed and attack speed by 30%. Nevertheless, Black Fang did its best to stand strong. Meanwhile, Chen watched the match closely, rubbing his chin as he contemplated the situation. He recognized that Zixingyu's hellish Gale Beast was a fire and wind dual attribute creature, while the six-clawed sky-splitting leopard possessed ice and wind attributes. As the battle raged on, with the ice leopard launching another attack while Black Fang did its best to dodge, Chen thought about the inevitable attribute disadvantage. Just then, Wang Yan screamed in frustration, declaring that he would now disable his beast. He commanded his ice leopard to get ready as he raised his arm, gathering bright blue energy in his hand. "Activate Shattering Heaven," he shouted. Suddenly, the ice leopard opened its mouth and unleashed a powerful ice beam toward Black Fang. The attack caught Black Fang off guard as it attempted to leap forward, but it was too late. A thin layer of ice enveloped its body. As the beam continued to strike Black Fang, the ice solidified into a prison, trapping it inside. Upon closer inspection, the red glow in Black Fang's eyes began to fade, signaling its struggle. Wang Yan smiled, believing that this would demonstrate to Zixingyu that he was indeed superior and that he should now understand his place in the academy. Zixingyu stood calmly, watching as Black Fang remained trapped in the ice prison. Wang Yan called out, mocking him with a laugh and a smug smile, claiming it wouldn't be long before his beast stayed frozen forever. His leopard beast looked at Zixingyu with a proud expression, fully aware that it was the one responsible for trapping Black Fang. The principal watched closely, wondering if this was the end for Zixingyu but puzzled by his calm demeanor despite his beast being trapped. Meanwhile, Chen and his classmates looked on with serious expressions, and Chen couldn't help but wonder what Zixingyu would do next. Zixingyu stayed calm, looking at Wang Yan with a slight smile. He asked if Wang really thought his beast was truly trapped in there. Then, with a serious expression, he raised his hand and called out to Black Fang, commanding it to activate the skill Night Stalker. Suddenly, Black Fang's eyes glowed brighter as it understood the command, and its form began to vanish, leaving only a black and red shadowy aura behind. The ice prison now held nothing but swirling red and black energy. Wang Yan shouted in shock, realizing that Black Fang had disappeared, struggling to comprehend what was happening. Meanwhile, Chen looked at the empty ice prison, recognizing that this skill belonged to the dark attribute tree. He couldn't understand how Black Fang could possess it, as he had previously measured the beast himself and found only fire and wind attributes. He wasn't the only one watching intently. The principal's expression grew serious as she considered the possibility that Black Fang might have 3 attributes. She made a mental note to investigate further at a later time to confirm her suspicions. Meanwhile, Wang was still confused about how Black Fang had escaped and began scanning his surroundings, realizing that the beast was still nearby. Unbeknownst to him, a black and red shadow moved swiftly along the ground, creeping up behind him as he continued to search. Suddenly, Black Fang sprang out of the shadow with a fierce roar, its claw aiming straight for Wang. Hearing the roar, Wang turned, hoping it was his own beast but dreading the truth. He looked back just in time to see Black Fang lunging at him. In a flash, his ice leopard intercepted, striking Black Fang and pushing it back. Wang breathed a sigh of relief, realizing he had narrowly escaped. Grateful, he looked at his leopard, silently thanking it for saving him. Meanwhile, Black Fang reappeared beside Zixingyu, who smiled confidently. He stated they were just getting warmed up and that it was time to show their true strength. Raising his hand, he released a powerful red aura and commanded Black Fang to activate Silent Claw. Understanding the order, Black Fang dashed forward with incredible speed, ready to strike. The leopard was confused as it watched Black Fang dive into the shadows, unsure of what was happening but sensing the need to stay alert. However, it was too late. Black Fang attacked without making a sound, striking from within the shadows. Wang screamed for his leopard to counterattack and fight back, but it was futile. The leopard could only feel the relentless strikes, unable to see or block the attacks as Black Fang moved silently through the shadows, landing blow after blow. Meanwhile, the principal crossed her arms as she watched Black Fang's attack, realizing there was more to it. She understood that Silent Claw was a dark-type attack, and any target hit by it would be silenced for 3 seconds. As she observed the leopard looking confused, she realized that was why Wang Yan's commands were not reaching his beast. It couldn't hear him. Just then, Wang raised his hand again, looking at the leopard as he stated that it was time to end the fight. He knew he didn't have much time left before the leopard recovered. He then commanded Black Fang to activate the skill Hell Howl. Black Fang turned its gaze toward the leopard, its intent clear. It was going to return the damage it had received earlier. It opened its mouth, gathering energy for the attack. Then, Black Fang released its skill and fired a fiery energy beam at the leopard, who could do nothing but take the full force of the attack. The leopard was sent flying into the wall with a crash, then hit the ground, unconscious from the powerful strike. Gimlong checked Wang Yan's beast and saw it was knocked out from the attack. He then walked over to Zixingyu, raised his hand in the air, and declared him the winner of the duel. Zixingyu smiled at the crowd, then caught the eyes of his classmates, who cheered and called out to him. They were happy and proud of him, knowing he had won the battle. Meanwhile, Wang fell to his knees in shock, struggling to understand how his rare and legendary beast had lost to a no-path beast like Zixingyu's. He muttered to himself, saying it was impossible, and couldn't shake the thought that Zixingyu had somehow cheated. His frustration and disbelief were evident as he tried to make sense of what had just happened. But a voice called out, stating that Wang had lost to his beast, the one he had once called useless and had even considered ending. That was not the case today. Just then, the principal appeared on the duel stage and told Wang he must apologize, reminding him that he had to follow the school rules. Wang sat there, motionless, slowly coming to terms with the fact that he had lost. The principal grew serious as she noticed Wang still didn't move. She reiterated that he needed to follow the agreement, stating that the battle was already over. Wang looked up at the principal, his face filled with anger and frustration at the situation. He gritted his teeth, knowing he had no choice but to follow the rules. As the vice principal's son, he understood that he couldn't embarrass his father any further, and the consequences of defying the rules would be worse than just apologizing. With a deep breath, he bowed in front of Zixinyu and muttered a reluctant apology. Zixinyu looked down at him, understanding that this wouldn't be the last time Wang would cause trouble. He knew Wang would likely come after him again in the future. Wang got up, walked away, and glanced back at Zixinyu, still seething with anger over having to apologize. He couldn't accept the loss and continued to believe that Zixinyu had cheated somehow. He silently vowed to get even with him someday. Meanwhile, the principal looked at Zixinyu with a rare look of approval. She stated that he had performed well during the match, praising his skills. Then, with a slight smile, she added that he was the second person to ever catch her eye. She then added that she was excited to see how he would perform in the upcoming ranking competition for new students, which would take place in 3 days. Zixinyu didn't quite know how to handle the compliment. He rubbed the back of his head, blushing as he looked down, then shyly thanked her for her words. After a moment, curiosity got the better of him, and he asked who the first person to catch her eye was. She looked at him and stated that it was a young girl genius with a spirit power level over 1000. The student's name was Yu Shuanging. Then, she began to think and recalled a staff member from this year's entrance exam mentioning a student with a higher spirit power than Yu Shuanging. She wondered who that could be, realizing there was still someone stronger than Zixinyu out there. Little did she know, the student the staff member had mentioned with higher spirit power was actually Zixinyu. As he heard the name, he recalled that it wasn't the first time he had heard it before and wondered if he might run into her. However, he understood that he needed to get back to the library and study more to grow stronger. Just then, the principal took an item out of her pocket, walked up to him, and smiled. She handed it to him, stating that it was his reward for the battle. She explained that she could appreciate talent and that the reward was also for winning the match. He saw the item and the system window immediately popped up, stating that it was a spatial ring. It could hold everything a Beastmaster might need, such as food, supplements, monster cores, and loot. Zixinyu was shocked by the information and wondered why he had received such a rare item from her. He questioned himself, realizing that nothing was ever truly free in this world. He couldn't help but wonder what she would want in return at some point in the future. Zixinyu stepped forward, thanked the principal for the item, and leaned in to take it. The scene shifted to the school entrance, where he thought of his sister, who was probably waiting for him. He decided he should hurry back to see her. On his way home, he reflected on the battle he had just fought. While lost in his thoughts, a little girl bumped into him, catching him by surprise. He looked down at her as she seemed a bit dazed from the impact. Zixinyu asked if she was alright, and she quickly nodded, saying she was fine. He bent down, gently patted her on the head, and called her little sister. Smiling, he reminded her to be more careful in the future and told her to head home safely. Suddenly, she hugged his leg tightly, calling him big brother and tearfully admitting she had nowhere to go. She begged him to take her in. Zixinyu was surprised to see such a young girl without a home and felt a pang of sympathy. He wondered if he should take responsibility for her, weighing the idea of helping her against the challenges it might bring. The scene shifts to the small place where Zixinyu and his sister are staying. She remarks that it's only been a day since they moved to Longyan City. She's clearly frustrated, scolding Z for bringing the little girl home. She questions if he took the girl away from her parents, while Z looks confused, explaining that he was only trying to help her. Meanwhile, the little girl looks up at him with hope in her eyes, silently wishing she could stay with him. Zixinyu calls out to his sister, asking her to give him a moment so he can explain everything. Red marks from her scolding are still visible on his head, and she remains upset, questioning how he could explain suddenly bringing a little girl home. She then asks if he's informed the authorities, concerned about the implications of taking in a child. After a few moments, once Z has had a chance to explain a bit, she begins to calm down slightly, though her skepticism lingers. Z explains that the little girl's name is Shiming and that she has a deep fear of beasts, which has kept her from becoming a beast master. He adds that she ran away from home because her family was mistreating her. His sister, sitting thoughtfully on the chair, still appears uncertain. Z then lifts his finger, emphasizing that he brought her home to help her overcome her fear of beasts and to offer her a safe place. His sister listens, her expression softening slightly as she considers his intentions. Shiming begins to panic, climbing onto Ruoxu's lap and pleading to stay, saying she doesn't want to return home. Seeing her adorable, pleading face, Ruoxu softens and agrees to let her stay, gently comforting her. She then looks up at Z, reminding him sternly that he must remember one thing: he is never to marry a woman from the Yi family. Z looks puzzled, wondering why his sister would bring up marriage out of nowhere, and tries to understand what she might be implying. The scene shifts to the following day, where Chen's class gathers in a testing area. As they prepare for the day's tasks, Li Xingyu stands quietly, his mind lingering on his sister's unexpected warning about the Yi family. He can't shake the thought, wondering what past events or hidden knowledge prompted her to forbid such a connection. This lingering question distracts him, making him curious about the true significance behind her words. A classmate approaches Li Xingyu, catching him off guard by mentioning the Yi family name he had unknowingly spoken aloud. Z blinks in surprise, realizing he'd been overheard. Before he can respond, his classmate changes the subject, asking what battle positions he thinks he might be placed in, mentioning that teacher Chen brought them all to the testing area to determine the best roles for each student and their beasts. Z, regaining his composure, nods and considers how he and Black Fang might fit into the team's dynamics. Li Xingyu explains to his classmate how teamwork is essential for beast masters, and how each beast can fill a specific role on a team. He lists the roles: shooter beasts, which specialize in long-range attacks to deal damage from a distance; mage beasts, which excel in group battles and can deal heavy area of effect damage with their control abilities; tank beasts, known for their strong defense and healing skills, often acting as shields to protect the team; assassin beasts, which are highly mobile and excel at taking down low-health targets with high attack power; and finally, support beasts, which enhance the abilities of the team as a whole. The classmate, now understanding the importance of the upcoming tests, expresses surprise at the complexity of the roles. He then asks Z what position he thinks would be the best for his storm butterfly. Chen, noticing the students talking, quickly interjects, warning them that talking during his class is not allowed. The classmate immediately apologizes to Chen, while Li Xingyu remains quiet, not wanting to cause any more problems. Chen, now with a serious expression, stands with his hands behind his back and announces that the students will summon their beasts in the order of their student IDs. He explains that they will undergo a test to determine the best position for each student within a beast team, based on the abilities and characteristics of their summoned beasts. The atmosphere shifts as the students prepare for the test, each wondering how their beasts will perform. As Chen calls out Songhu, he states that his beast has powerful defense, making it perfect for the tank position. The students nod in agreement, knowing how important it is to have a strong defender in a team battle. Then, Chen calls out the student who was talking earlier, Wu Xingyu, explaining that his storm butterfly is excellent for wide area water attacks, making it ideal for the mage position. The classmates are impressed by the butterfly's abilities. Finally, Chen calls out Li Xingyu. As he steps forward, his classmates whisper among themselves, eagerly wondering what position he will be assigned. Li Xingyu smiles confidently, walking to the center. Chen observes Li Xingyu carefully and asks if he is ready for the first test, the attack power test. Li Xingyu smiles, his confidence unwavering. He raises his arm, summoning Black Fang. As he does, a circle of energy appears beneath him, swirling with flames. The air seems to grow heavy with anticipation as Black Fang materializes, surrounded by a red and black aura. The beast stands tall and imposing, its eyes glowing with intensity, ready for the test ahead. The class watches in awe, curious to see how Black Fang will perform in this first challenge. The energy in the air crackles, and the students wait for Chen to give the signal to begin. Chen nods to begin the test. Zixinyu commands Black Fang to use Hell Howl. The beast's eyes flare as it releases a powerful blast of fire. The explosion hits the target hard, shaking the ground and sending smoke into the air. The class watches in silence, amazed by the power of the attack. Chen remains calm but is clearly surprised by how much damage Black Fang's Hell Howl caused. When the smoke clears, the screen shows the effect called triple damage. The damage number displayed is 6,371. Seeing the damage on the screen, Chen thinks to himself about how most Beast Master's special attack damage usually ranges between 500 to 1500. He struggles to believe that Zixinyu's beast landed a triple critical hit over 2000. Chen can't help but wonder if there is more to Black Fang than meets the eye, and he begins to reconsider his initial judgment of the beast's potential. Meanwhile, Zixinyu calls out to Chen, questioning that based on his damage, he should fit the assassin role. He begins to say more, but Chen cuts him off with a serious look, stating that there are still other tests to complete before any conclusions can be made. As Chen watches closely, he thinks about testing Zixinyu's potential further, curious to see just how far his abilities can reach. They move to the range test, where Z commands Black Fang to use the skill Hellfire. The beast releases a concentrated burst of flames, and Wusheng, still in shock, exclaims that the range of Black Fang's attack is at least 800 meters. He turns to Z and asks if he should consider becoming a shooter, given the impressive range. Next, they move to the defense test. Wusheng watches intently as Black Fang stands firm against the incoming assault. Despite the attack from Chen's extraordinary beast, the ice armor turtle, Black Fang's defenses hold strong. Wusheng, still amazed, comments that even the powerful ice armor turtle couldn't break through Black Fang's defenses. Next, they move to the control test. Zixinyu commands Black Fang to use Hellbind, a skill that ensnares and immobilizes the target with dark energy. Wusheng, still processing everything, questions if he should consider switching to a mage role, considering Black Fang's versatility and control over its skills. Finally, they proceed to the buff test. Chen holds up a tester and examines the data. He reads aloud, stating that based on the results, any beast within 10 meters of Zhao's Black Fang gains a 30% combat boost, along with a 10% increase in both attack and movement speed. The class looks on in awe as they realize just how powerful Zhao's beast truly is, offering not only devastating attacks, but also substantial buffs to allies. It becomes clear that Black Fang's abilities are far beyond ordinary, leaving everyone, including Chen, deeply impressed. Wusheng, still trying to process the overwhelming abilities of Z and Black Fang, questions Chen. He asks where Z should be placed, as he seems capable of excelling in all the roles: assassin, mage, shooter, tank, and support, making it difficult to decide which position would be the best fit for him. Chen, now serious and contemplative, thinks about how he anticipated this outcome. He pauses for a moment, considering the implications of Zhao's remarkable abilities. Finally, he looks at Wusheng and replies that there is actually one more special position that would be the best fit for Z, one that suits his unique talents and would allow him to maximize his potential. Wusheng, intrigued, waits for Chen to elaborate on this special position. Chen looks at Z and explains that people like him are known as all-rounders. Wusheng, confused, raises his hand and asks what an all-rounder is, drawing the attention of the other classmates, who have never heard of this role before. Chen points at Z and explains that a beast master who is powerful and excels in all positions is given the title of an all-rounder, a rare and highly valued role. Chen smiles and adds that it is clear Zixinyu is the only all-rounder in the class. Z smiles, feeling a sense of happiness and relief, finally able to be proud after all the hardships he faced before meeting Black Fang. Suddenly, Wusheng calls out, amazed at Zhao's abilities. Other classmates gather around, congratulating him for becoming an all-rounder. Z, feeling shy about all the attention, replies to Wusheng that being an all-rounder isn't a big deal. Meanwhile, Chen closes his eyes and warns Z not to get too excited. He explains that while all-rounders are rare, they are not unheard of. Chen continues, stating that the freshman data isn't fully sorted yet, but so far, Z is the only all-rounder in the class. He then mentions that in the second year, there are 2 all-rounders. Yi Shuanging and Han Tianjun. In the third year, Marong Qingyang and Li Zhuancheng hold that title. Chen looks at Zi, telling him that he needs to keep working hard, as there are other all-rounders who are stronger than him. After class, Zi decided to head home, but as he walked down the street, he thought about the upcoming freshman ranking competition. He realized that this might be a good time to get some beast nutrient boosters to prepare himself and Black Fang for the competition. With that in mind, he changed direction and decided to head to the store for the boosters instead of going straight home. Zi stopped in his tracks as a group of people blocked his path. One of them smirked and asked where Zi thought he was going. Annoyed, Zi raised an eyebrow and questioned who they were to stop him. The leader of the group, wearing a confident grin, stepped forward and introduced them as the Black Tiger Guild. He mocked Zi for not recognizing them. The members of the group looked at him with a mix of amusement and hostility, as one of them commented that Zi was looking for trouble. Just then, Wang Yan stepped out from behind the group, wearing an evil grin. He smiled maliciously and told President Lei not to waste words on someone like Zi. Wang Yan then suggested they break Zhao's legs and questioned if he still dared to act cocky in front of them. Lei listened to Wang Yan, calling him young master, as the group advanced towards Zi, ready to hurt him. Lei smirked and commented that Zi had messed with the young master, and now his luck had run out. Wang Yan watched with satisfaction from the side, enjoying the situation. Zi, however, called out to Lei, noticing the stars on the chest of each group member. He recognized that they were all 3 and 4-star beast masters, which made him question why Lei would bother bullying a 1-star beast master like himself. Anger mixed with frustration as Zi asked why they were targeting someone so low-ranked. Wang, visibly annoyed, called out in response to Zhao's question. He angrily stated that, yes, he was bullying him and mockingly questioned what Zi was going to do about it. Lei, with a calm smile, gathered purple energy around his hands. He turned to Wang and commented, telling him to calm down, assuring him that he would handle this problem right then and there. With an evil grin, Lei called out his beast. A massive white tiger materialized beside him, its fur gleaming with an otherworldly glow. It let out a powerful roar, showing its readiness for battle, its eyes locked onto Zi with an intimidating intensity. The air around them seemed to tense as the beast prepared to unleash its power. Lei's expression turned into one of fury as he shouted the command for his white tiger to attack. The tiger lunged forward with incredible speed, its claws aimed at Zi, but Zi stood firm, his focus unwavering. Without hesitation, he called out to Black Fang. The red and black beast dashed forward, its form a blur as it moved towards the white tiger. Before the massive tiger could react, Black Fang struck with precision, sinking its claws into the back of the tiger's neck. The white tiger howled in pain, a screech that echoed through the air, before Black Fang forced it into the ground with a brutal slam. The impact was so powerful that a cloud of dust and debris erupted from the force, momentarily obscuring the battlefield. Lei's eyes widened in shock, his beast pinned down and clearly outmatched, while Zi remained calm, watching as Black Fang stood protectively in front of him. As the battle raged on, Lei's shock deepened. He could hardly believe that a 1-star beast like Zhao's Black Fang was holding its ground against his powerful level for White Tiger. Both beasts roared at each other, each trying to overpower the other, but Black Fang was proving to be an unexpected challenge. Lei couldn't comprehend how this low-level beast was so strong, and he struggled to come to terms with it. Realizing that brute strength alone wasn't going to win the fight, Lei's smile turned sinister. His eyes glinted with malice as he stepped forward, calling out to Zi. "If your 1-star beast is so strong, then prove it," Lei sneered. "Let's see how your little beast holds up against my guild." With a wave of his hand, the rest of the Black Tiger Guild members summoned their beasts, each one a formidable creature in its own right. There were level 3 and level 4 beasts among them, all glaring at Zi and Black Fang, confident that this would be an easy victory. Zi, however, stood tall, refusing to back down. He knew that he was facing an overwhelming number of opponents, but with Black Fang by his side, he had no intention of running. The fight was far from over, and he was ready to stand his ground. Suddenly, a voice called out, announcing that they would accept the challenge. The voice told Lei that they would see whose guild was truly stronger. Lei and his group immediately recognized the voice, and as they looked over, Lei's hopes began to fade. He feared it was exactly who he thought it was. The lady Zi had helped on the train appeared, confidently stating that her Celestial Guild was still superior to the Black Tiger Guild. She added that while she was happy to let Lei test his strength, she was certain her guild would prevail. Her guild members stood at the ready, prepared for battle. Z, who had been focused on the fight, was shocked to see her again. He hadn't expected the situation to escalate so quickly or for her to intervene, but now he realized he wasn't alone in facing this threat. The tension in the air grew thicker as both guilds prepared to clash. Chen approached Z with her guild members flanking her. Z, relieved and grateful, smiled warmly and called her sister, grateful that she had come to his aid in this difficult situation. Meanwhile, Lei's men began to panic as they realized they were surrounded by the Celestial Guild. They looked to Lei, their faces filled with worrying, asking what they should do. The sight of the confident Celestial Guild had shaken them, and they hesitated, no longer sure of their next move. Lei struggled to stay calm, remembering that the Celestial Guild ranked second among the Beast Master guilds in Longyan City. Even the top-ranked Hurricane Guild would avoid conflict with them. Realizing the seriousness of the situation, he stepped forward respectfully. "Why has Miss Qing come here?" he asked, trying to keep his tone steady. One of his men whispered, confused about Lei's sudden change in demeanor, as everyone waited in silence for Qin's reply. Qin wrapped her arm around Zhao's shoulders, remarking that she just happened to be passing by. If she hadn't, she wouldn't have known that President Lei was causing trouble for her dear brother. Z, caught off guard, looked uncertain, while Lei, still confused, questioned her claim, saying he'd only heard that President Qin had one daughter. Qin firmly clarified that Zi Xingyu was her sworn brother, someone she recognized as family. She made it clear that anyone who tried to bully her brother was, in effect, challenging her. Lei fell silent, realizing the gravity of the situation, as Qin continued, emphasizing that any attempt to trouble her brother meant dealing with the full might of the Celestial Guild. Around them, Celestial Guild members and beasts stood ready, awaiting her command, their resolve evident in their fierce stances. Seeing the array of beasts poised for battle, Lei put on his most respectful expression and addressed Qin, saying that this was all a misunderstanding. Realizing he needed to be honest to avoid further trouble, Lei pointed back at Wang, his voice tinged with anger. He explained that it was Wang who had hired them to cause trouble for her brother. Wang, now fully aware that the blame was shifting onto him, began to panic, his face draining of color as he looked around for support. Seeing himself isolated, Wang raised his hands in surrender, stammering that he hadn't meant to target Zi Xingyu. Qin ignored his pleas and instead turned her gaze to Lei, making it clear he knew what was expected if he wanted to avoid a clash with her guild. Lei, clearly panicked, nodded in understanding. He turned to his men, shouting angrily at Wang, accusing him of daring to bully young Master Zi. His men, following Lei's lead, began to rough up Wang, who screamed in protest, yelling that he had indeed hired the man now they were turning on him. His cries echoed through the street, underscoring his helplessness in the face of Qin's power and influence. Time passed, and Zi found himself at the Celestial Guild's headquarters. Chen, walking beside him, couldn't help but ask how he had ended up running into such trouble. Zi, still confused about how everything had unfolded, shrugged and muttered that it was just his bad luck. He had only wanted to buy some nutrient boosters and never expected things to spiral out of control. Qin, looking at him with a mix of amusement and curiosity, raised an eyebrow and asked why he hadn't simply asked her for help. She then explained that the Celestial Guild sold the nutrient boosters he was looking for. With a smile, she added that if he ever needed any supplements in the future, she would be happy to help and offer them for free. He was taken aback and commented to her that he didn't know Sister Qin was so generous, thinking about how she was also the only daughter. She then explained that their guild had training facilities equipped with the best equipment to enhance Beastmaster skills. She then showed him another area and explained that this place was for recovery and relaxation, where Beastmasters and their beasts could come after missions to recover. Moving on, she led him to a massive room with a large screen and stated that this was the conference room on the top floor, where they held meetings to sort out detailed strategies for missions. She then took him to a lab and explained that this was their medical wing, fully equipped with advanced medical technology. It also had a vast range of medical herbs available to treat both Beastmasters and their beasts. She then pointed at him and explained that they had Beastmaster doctors here as well, highly skilled professionals who provided advanced medical care for beasts that were injured or facing problems, especially after missions. Lee was surprised to learn they actually had Beastmaster doctors on staff, realizing this might be a place where his all-rounder skills could be useful. Taking the opportunity, he asked Ch1 if he could join her guild as a Beastmaster doctor. However, before she could respond, a firm voice suddenly called out, stating that he absolutely could not join them. The voice belonged to Lei Yue, the vice president of the Celestial Guild. She approached with a serious expression, crossing her arms as she looked Zi up and down. With a sharp tone, she first asked who he was and how he managed to get inside the guild. Then, she questioned his level of experience, expressing doubt over his desire to become a Beastmaster doctor. She concluded by stating firmly that it was no time for jokes, reminding him that doctors were a crucial role and should not be treated lightly. Chen, sensing the tension, called out to Lei Yue, addressing her as Auntie. She explained that Zi was the one she had mentioned earlier, the one who helped her capture the three-eyed giant apes on the train. Chen then added that she had taken him in as her sworn brother and now considered him part of her family. Lei Yue listened closely, her expression softening slightly as she processed the information. She looked Zi over carefully, but still couldn't shake the feeling that he didn't seem particularly impressive to her. Despite Qin's words, she remained skeptical, her eyes narrowing as she sized him up. Before Lei Yue could voice her concerns to Chen, a person rushed into the room, clearly in a panic. They hurried toward the vice president, urgently explaining that several beasts had just been brought in with severe injuries. The injured beasts had already been taken to the medical wing. The panicked messenger stood before her, breathless, and asked what should be done next, explaining that they were short on staff capable of handling such severe cases. Lei Yue paused, a moment of concern flickering in her eyes as she wondered why they were short-handed. However, she quickly set aside her personal thoughts, realizing the situation at hand required her full attention. Lei Yue looked at the panicked messenger, her expression calm as she did her best to ease his worrying. She reassured him, stating that everything would be handled and there was no need to panic. Reinforcements from the other branches could be called in to help, and they would manage the situation efficiently. Turning to Chen, she asked if it would be possible for her to request support from the other guilds in the area. As she spoke, the messenger, now starting to calm down, took a deep breath, grateful for the clarity. A few moments later, they arrived at the medical wing, where injured beasts were lying on tables, some with severe wounds and bleeding heavily. The messenger boy, still in a state of panic, rushed up to the vice president and pleaded for help. He pointed at the beasts, stressing that they wouldn't last much longer without immediate attention. Chen stood nearby, unsure of how to assist in such a critical situation, feeling helpless as the situation escalated. Meanwhile, Lei Yue, visibly annoyed, surveyed the scene and furrowed her brow. She began to wonder if the other guilds were intentionally delaying their response, questioning whether this lack of support was a deliberate move. But just then, a firm voice echoed through the room, declaring that they could handle it. It was Zi Xingyu. He stepped forward, placing his hand on his chest, his expression serious as he addressed the vice president. He glanced at the injured beast before speaking, questioning whether she would allow him to take charge of the situation in front of them. Meanwhile, two staff members from the guild hurried toward the healing wing. One of them, glancing nervously at a clipboard, mentioned that the beast on operating table number 3 had sustained severe injuries and was losing blood rapidly. The other, visibly stressed, shouted that they urgently needed another blood bag, their pace quickening as the situation grew more critical. As they rushed to bring the injured beast into the medical wing, a young man followed closely behind, his face pale with panic. He screamed for everyone to clear the way, his voice trembling with desperation. The staff could only hope they had brought the beast to the doctors in time, as its condition seemed to be deteriorating rapidly. Upon reaching the operating room, the young man's distress grew even more palpable. He looked frantically at the doctors, begging them to save his beast. The creature lay on the table, battered and worn out, its body riddled with injuries, but it still held on, struggling to stay alive despite the heavy bleeding. Just then, the staff from the healing wing rushed over to assist. One of them quickly assessed the situation and stated that they needed to stop the bleeding first. Another doctor, examining the wound, grimly commented that the hemostats weren't working, and they would need to prepare stronger medicine to stabilize the beast. A third staff member, growing more concerned by the minute, noted that they were struggling to stop the bleeding at all, the situation becoming more dire with each passing second. The young man, standing by helplessly, clenched his fists in desperation, praying that they would be able to save his companion. Meanwhile, Vishenyu watched intently, trying to think of a way he could help. Suddenly, the system appeared in his mind, its usual cold voice echoing. Green-eyed Mastiff, rank 3 beast with elite bloodline. Life stats indicate a severe injury caused by a golden queen bee, which inflicted a pinhole wound. Additionally, a green mucus has covered the wound, preventing natural healing. Zixingyu's eyes widened as he processed the information. He immediately understood that the green mucus was likely a toxin or some kind of poison that was interfering with the healing process. He knew that without addressing the mucus, no amount of conventional medical treatment would save the beast. Determined, Z began to think about how he could counter this obstacle and help the beast before it was too late. He then called out to the staff members, mentioning that he knew a way to stop the bleeding, but he wasn't sure if they would believe him. The young man, hearing that Z could help, desperately shouted that the bleeding wasn't stopping and nothing was working. He begged Z to save his beast, urging him to do whatever it took to stop the bleeding. He lifted his hand and explained that they would need 1 sky spirit grass, 1 purple medical flower, and to mash them together to make 20 grams of liquid medicine. He then instructed them to add a magical beast core from an extraordinary ranked beast with poison properties, and to boil the mixture for 5 minutes. Hearing Zhao's method, the doctors paused and looked at him, clearly confused. One of them questioned him, pointing out that the herbs he mentioned were all poisonous in some way. They asked how adding poison to poison could possibly help the beast, clearly uncertain about the method he proposed. Zhao's expression remained serious as he insisted they follow his instructions without hesitation. He urged them to hurry and gather the ingredients, explaining that if they didn't act quickly, the beast would surely pass away. He pointed out that they hadn't even stopped the bleeding yet, emphasizing the urgency of the situation. Suddenly, the young man shouted at the doctors, demanding they stop wasting time and follow Zhao's instructions, as they had no other option. The doctors exchanged uncertain glances but, realizing the gravity of the situation, reluctantly turned away and rushed to gather the ingredients for the potion. Though they had doubts about whether it would work, they understood they had no choice but to try. 5 minutes later, a doctor returned, visibly exhausted from the rush, and stated that he had successfully created the potion Z requested. Without hesitation, Z put on gloves, took the potion, and opened the lid. Dipping his finger into the mixture, he turned toward the beast's injury, carefully applying the potion to the wound. The air was thick with tension as everyone watched, hoping this unconventional method would work. Suddenly, the beast let out a fierce roar of pain, causing the young man to panic. He watched helplessly, hoping that the treatment would work, but the beast's agonized cries made him doubt if they were doing the right thing. He held his breath, praying the situation wouldn't worsen, as the beast writhed in pain under Zhao's care. The tension in the room grew unbearable. Just as the young man was about to give up, he suddenly noticed that the injury had begun to heal. His eyes widened in disbelief, and he screamed in shock, pointing at the beast. The bleeding had stopped. The staff and doctors, who had been watching in silence, were equally amazed. They couldn't believe their eyes. This method, one they had never seen before, had actually worked. They were eager to question Z about how he knew such a technique and how he had come up with it. In the back, the young man was overwhelmed with gratitude, tears streaming down his face as he watched his beast, now resting peacefully to recover. Z turned away from the beast and began removing his gloves, then directed his attention to the vice president. He calmly questioned her, asking if she was satisfied with his performance and what she thought of his skills. Chen, standing nearby, was also taken aback. She had watched in awe as he expertly handled the situation and saved the beast. She was impressed by his quick thinking and the unexpected solution he had provided. Liu, the vice president, extended her hand with a smile and admitted that Z had surprised her. She had originally thought he lacked skill, but now she realized she had been mistaken. With a gracious nod, she expressed her desire to invite him to join the Sky Guild as their specially appointed pharmacist. Z gratefully shook her hand, offering a sincere thank you. As they exchanged a firm handshake, he couldn't help but feel pleased. This was a great opportunity. He'd be able to access the booster he had been wanting much sooner than he had expected. However, his happiness quickly faded when he arrived home. His sister, visibly displeased, questioned him about his tardiness. She demanded to know if the reason he was late was because he saved a beast, signed a contract with the Sky Guild, and got a job there as a pharmacist. He looked at her with a mix of fear and reluctance, nodding in agreement. It was true, but he couldn't help but think that his sister was nearly impossible to deal with when she was angry. She looked away, clearly pissed off, and muttered under her breath that he had forgotten about his real sister after getting a fake one who could help him more than she ever could. Z, panicking at her words, quickly responded, insisting that it wasn't true. He could never forget his sister, there was no way it would be possible. Just then, Ximeng questioned him about the job title he had gotten, asking if it was something that could be eaten. Z smiled, thinking how children always had such an innocent way of looking at things. He nodded and explained that she was right. Now that he worked for the Sky Guild, he would be receiving a salary. He raised his hand in the air and promised that he would treat them to a big feast once he got paid. Ximeng jumped in the air, her excitement clear, as she screamed that she can't wait for the food. Meanwhile, in Wang's hospital room, he remained unconscious from the severe beating he had endured at the hands of the Tiger Guild. Suddenly, he screamed out Zixingyu's name, vowing to make him pay. His father, standing beside the bed, looked at him coldly and called him useless. Wang, in a fit of frustration and pain, began to cry, pleading with his father to help him teach Z a lesson. His father looked at him with disdain and coldly remarked that Wang had lost to an unknown person from some small town in an official academy duel. He didn't just lose, he had brought shame to the family. Wang continued to cry, his frustration building as he explained that he didn't know where Zixingyu had come from or how his beast had more than two attributes. He pleaded with his father to stop scolding him, feeling helpless in the face of his father's harsh words. Wang dried his eyes, frustration mounting, and seethed with anger. He muttered that Zixingyu now had the backing of the Sky Guild, making it impossible for him to get even. He bitterly acknowledged that his family could not afford to go against such a powerful organization. His father, however, smiled a sinister grin as he adjusted his glasses, an eerie glint in his eyes. He leaned forward and coldly remarked that it would be a shame if something were to happen to Z during the upcoming academy trials. He casually pointed out that many powerful beasts would be participating in the trials, and if one of them were to harm Z, it would be completely unrelated to their family. His father let out a dark laugh, as though already plotting something dangerous. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and like. It really helps me out.